sports, research, leadership, journalism, and religious life. At this university, I had the chance to win the Student Achievement Awards in 2016. Thus, I had the opportunity to develop myself and to meet a lot of friends who are passionate and are top students in their fields. I also received a scholarship that was very helpful for my studies. I think Atma Jaya indicates us to develop critical and analytical thinking skills. The skills are essential for me to have a deeper understanding of my area of study. Numerous scholarship programs offered by Atma Jaya, either from Atma Jaya or abroad, have extensively facilitated students to pursue their studies. I'm grateful to be one of the awardees. Unika Atma Jaya also has several research centers, including Center for Community Empowerment and Atma Jaya Venture. These institutions are the manifestations of our commitment to continuously improve our academic quality and our contributions to solve the problems within the community. Unika Atma Jaya also actively seeks partnerships with leading universities from around the world. We also work together with various education consortia through knowledge sharing, discussions, and joint research, such as collaboration with US scholars. Through the fields of study we offer, Atma Jaya is committed to continuously providing the best quality of education in order to build a bright and intelligent next generation that will strive to improve social welfare. To achieve our vision and mission to become a university with the spirit of social entrepreneurship, we commit to develop excellent research that is based on social and industrial needs. Based on the quality, I believe that Atma Jaya was the best choice for me. In addition, the campus is strategically located. I decided to enter the Center for Health Development. We serve as the Center for Human Development. Currently, Atma Jaya offers undergraduate, graduate, and professional programs and various fields of study. These programs are run in 8 faculties: Faculty of Economics and Business, the Faculty of Administration, Business, and Communication, Faculty of Education and Language, Faculty of Engineering, Faculty of Law, Faculty of Medicine, the Faculty of Psychology, and the Faculty of Technobiology. Besides attending lectures, the students are encouraged to be actively involved in developing their soft skills, sports, research, leadership, journalism, and religious life. At this university, I had the chance to win the Student Achievement Awards in 2016. Thus, I had the opportunity to develop myself and to meet a lot of friends who are passionate and are top students in their fields. I also received a scholarship that was very helpful for my studies. I feel Atma Jaya indicates us to develop critical and analytical thinking skills. The skills are essential for me to have a deeper understanding of my area of study. Numerous scholarship programs offered by Atma Jaya, either from Atma Jaya or abroad, have extensively facilitated students to pursue their studies. I'm grateful to be one of the awardees. Unika Atma Jaya also has several research centers, including Center for Community Empowerment and Atma Jaya Venture. These institutions are the manifestations of our commitment to continuously improve our economic quality and our contributions to solve the problems within the community. Untitled Atma Jaya also actively seek
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the public lecture, German Social Market Economy in the Age of Globalization, which will be delivered by His Excellency Mr. Peter Altmaier, German Federal Minister for Economic Affairs and Energy. Before we begin, let me introduce ourselves. I'm Stephen Philip and my partner Michelle. We will be the master ceremony for today's lecture.
We, on behalf of Atma Jaya Catholic University of Indonesia, are very pleased to welcome our distinguished guests and speakers. We would like to welcome His Excellency Mr. Peter Altmaier, Federal Minister for Economic Affairs and Energy, as well as our honorable speaker, Dr. Agustinus Prasetyantoko, as Director of Atma Jaya Catholic University of Indonesia, and delegates from German Embassy, GIZ, German foundations and organizations.
Before we proceed to the lecture, we would like to invite the Rector of Atma Jaya Catholic University of Indonesia, Dr. Agustinus Prasetyantoko, to give a welcoming remarks for this event. To Dr. Prasetyantoko, please come.
Honorable Minister Mr. Peter Altmaier, distinguished guests, colleagues, dear students, ladies and gentlemen, selamat pagi, very good morning. On behalf of Atma Jaya Catholic University of Indonesia, it is my privilege to extend warmest welcome to the Honorable Mr. Peter Altmaier, Federal Minister for Economic Affairs and Energy of the Federal Republic of Germany. It is also a pleasure to have distinguished guests from Germany who travels across continents to this country. It is indeed a great honor for us to host the lecture from the Honorable Minister Peter Altmaier on social market economy. We are all aware that Germany is now one of the most powerful economies in Europe, even in the world. Firstly, it is due to the roles of technology that can support the industrial productivity and economic stability. Second, it is due to the roles of the society. So we can see a real balance between industrialization, the adoption of advanced and higher technology, and the social development. Technology revolutions in the Industrial Revolution 4.0 has proved to be a game changer for the society. It has brought substantive socio-technical changes on the transformation and disruption in the society. It also opened wider range of opportunity to improve human life, physically, socially, and culturally. For us in Indonesia, technology will inevitably be important element which continue to color and to large extent determine the development policies and the social technical changes in the future. Further, this situation has brought a new challenge to the academic institution in exploring the new frontier areas of research and to continuously shape its academic contribution to the futures. We are very lucky to be granted this opportunity to learn from the experiences of Germany on how a country can successfully link technology, society, and globalization. At present, here in our campus, Atma Jaya and German Embassy, together with GIZ, are holding exhibition of energy transition in Germany. During this moment of collaboration, we can learn from each other on the effective and efficient management of energy. In fact, Atma Jaya University has a long history of collaboration with German institutions, especially in higher education and research, with full support from the German Embassy in Indonesia. And for that, I would like to express deepest gratitude to His Excellency Dr. Peter Solf, who is not here now, ambassadors of the Federal Republic of Germany to Indonesia, to continue support to Atma Jaya Catholic University of Indonesia. I'm confident that we can further enhance our academic collaborations. Above that, in a few moments, we will have a very precious opportunity to learn from the Honorable Minister Peter Altmaier on Germany's social market economy in the age of globalization. Minister Altmaier, on behalf of everyone here, I warmly welcome you and invite you to deliver your lectures. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the speech, Dr. Prasetyantoko. Our discussion today will be led by Dr. Yura C. Yuliana Wahyuningtyas as the Head of Business and Competition Law Study Group and Associate Dean of Faculty of Law at Atma Jaya Catholic University of Indonesia. To Dr. Yura C. Yuliana Wahyuningtyas, the stage is yours.
Good morning, distinguished guests, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for the very important event. Today we will have a lecture that would be delivered by our honorable guest, our honorable keynote speaker, His Excellency Minister Peter Altmaier, the Federal Minister of Economic Affairs and Energy of Germany. We are very proud to have you, and it's a great honor to welcome you all. And without further ado, I would like to invite Minister Altmaier to deliver the keynote speech on Germany's social market economy in the age of globalization. After the speech, we will have 15 minutes discussions, and I will be very honored to chair the discussion for 15 minutes and hope that we will have fruitful discussion. Thank you. Please welcome to the stage and the speaker.
Good morning, everybody. It's a very important moment for me during my visit to Indonesia that I have the honor and the pleasure to discuss with you about challenges ahead of all of us, and the fact that I'm accompanied by 6 distinguished members of German Parliament, representing all political factions in our parliament, by a huge delegation of business people and people from my ministry, is an indication how important this dialogue between the Asian Pacific region and Europe, especially Germany, in our eyes, still is and will be even more important in the future. And you, all of you, you are the hope of the century. You will be the people transforming the world. You will be the people shaping new structures and implementing new models and reforms, creating economic growth, creating jobs and peace and sustainability for a better future of millions and billions of people. And therefore it is important to have this opportunity to reflect together about the challenges ahead of us. I'm, as a German minister in government and minister of the economy, and perhaps, I don't know, not the most important one, but certainly the biggest one of them all. And I believe that the role of a politician is not in the first place to be a good civil servant. We have so excellent civil servants in our ministries. But the role of a politician is to engage in a debate, to work for consensus, and to change the course of things. I'm basically optimistic. I'm optimistic that the future will be better than the present, can be better than the present, if we avoid mistakes that have been made so many times by our peoples and by our leaders in the past. First statement. I believe that ahead of us is an unprecedented era of economic growth. Today, we have about 7 billion people worldwide, and this number is growing rapidly. We have young countries where the average age in Africa, for example, is below 15. And in your lifetime, 8 billion people will live on this planet. And all these people have a dream. It's a dream of happiness. It's a dream of having a family. It's a dream of enjoying a decent standard of living, of owning a car, of owning TV, of being part of spending holidays, being able of spending holidays abroad. And what else is important for young people around the globe? And the question is, can we fulfill the dreams of the people? Can we achieve welfare, standard of living, social security, decent environment for 8 billion people? This is the economic challenge. There is a second challenge, going hand in hand with the first one I just described, and this is the ecological challenge. And you imagine what has happened to the planet over the last 100 years, when the process of industrial activity was confined merely to the classic industrialized countries in Europe, in the US, and in some other areas worldwide. And when you see how much damage has been done to our environment, to the seas, to the air, and to the situation of natural resources, then you can imagine that an increase of individual welfare that would be 1,000 times what we know today, or 10,000 times what we know today, would immediately destroy our climate, would severely affect the ecological basis of our life, if we would not be able to reconcile economic growth on the one hand with the protection of the planet, its climate, and its resources on the other side. This is an enormous challenge. It's not a choice. It has to go hand in hand. That means we have to look how we can organize enough energy to save the energy hunger, the energy demand in an ever-growing global society without destroying the atmosphere. And this is why we are talking in Germany about energy transition. Energy transition means that we will gradually, step by step, replace the fossil-fueled energy supply by renewable energies produced by the sun, by wind, by biomass, energy that will be cheap and sustainable, that will fuel the economic growth without destroying the environment. This is the second challenge for all of you. It is not confined to energy. It stretches to resource efficiency. When I was a young student, there was a famous bodybuilder, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And there is a movie where he was able to squeeze a Coca-Cola can with his muscles. And I tried as a 14 years old to do the same. It was in vain. I didn't even manage to achieve a little bit. And then year after year, it became easier for me. And why? Not because I'm that strong. No, simply because today you need about 20% of the metal to produce one can of Coca-Cola than was needed 40 years ago. This means resource efficiency. You can, with the same amount of metal, of steel or aluminum, you can produce 5 times the number of cans. And what is even more important, today we can recycle 90% of the metals. We can recycle 70% of the plastics that are used. And that means we can have a more resource-efficient economy. And this is not something that should diminish our standard of living and our welfare. No, we need ecological policy, energy transition, resource efficiency as a business model. That you can earn money, that you can make money by implementing ecological, responsible ways of producing and production. And then third, we are living in an era of innovation, of unprecedented innovation. When you look back to history, you will find that economic growth over more than 10,000 years of civilized, of the history of civilization was very slow and limited. Hunger, poverty, misery were the characteristics of the history of mankind for 10,000 years. And then there was an explosion, an economic explosion in the year 1800 approximately, when the steam machine, the steam engine was invented. And the steam engine for the first time produced the energy that was needed to generate economic growth. And then we had innovation after innovation. And it made our life easier, and it made economic growth easier and faster. And today, we are facing a revolution, a wave of innovation that is unprecedented in history, that exceeds even the impact of the invention of the steam engine. And I discussed it with Tom Lembong, who is one of the most outstanding ministers in the Indonesian government. And we fully agreed that this is even more important than the invention of electricity. It is a process of digitization and the invention of artificial intelligence, AI, because it will revolutionize our way of producing goods. It will revolutionize our social, cultural, and personal life. It will increase the productivity in some areas to at least 40%. And that means we will see new industries emerge. We will see classical industries being transformed. We will see that countries who have not yet been industrialized countries will have enormous chances to grow and to develop. And in all this wonderful, sparkling context, we have to decide on our model for organizing our countries, our economies, and for organizing the world. And let me share with you some reflections about it. First of all, I believe in social market economy. This has 2 elements. One is market economy, and the second is social. Market economy means that the economic activities are not decided and determined by politicians, not by ministers, state secretaries, or members of parliament. They are determined and decided by business people, by consumers, by citizens. Why? Because in a free market economy, the business people and the consumers know much better than any civil servant in a ministry what is needed, what is convenient, what is popular. And it's a kind of evolutionary principle, because when you have in a market economy, when you have tens of thousands of self-employed business people, and not all of them are ingenious, some of them are lazy, some of them are stupid, but they will not survive. They will not have economic success, they will disappear. And others who are a little bit more ingenious, a little bit more active, a little bit more successful, will do the job. And that means that the system of a market economy is optimizing it automatically. And this is the big success of all the countries with a market economy. In Germany, after a very difficult experience of almost 40 years, in the First World War, in the 20s and the 30s and the Second World War, there was one of my predecessors, Ludwig Erhard. He was the first minister of the economy, and he decided to transform the country into a market-based economy. And this has initiated an unprecedented success, what we call the German economic miracle. In the 50s and in the 60s, we are still benefiting from that. And this is something that is not confined and limited to Europe. It is something that works everywhere, worldwide. I remember when I was a student like you, there was a Chinese leader called Deng Xiaoping, and he has implemented market economy in China. Many people at that time were against it, were suspicious. And then he was asked, why can you, as a prominent communist, recommend us a capitalist market economy? Then his answer was, well, I don't mind if the cat is white or red. What is important is that the cat can catch mice. And market economy is catching mice everywhere and all the time. And this is why China has seen this tremendous economic success. And this is why countries like Indonesia have such a tremendous economic success over recent years, because they are relying increasingly more on market economy. And in order to make it successful, you need freedom of investment, freedom of economic activities, but you need also people ready to play their role as business people, as self-employed people, setting up their own businesses, hiring employees, organizing professional training for the employees, extending the business model to other countries. This is what is the core of market economy. And me, as a Minister of the Economy in Germany, I'm now initiating a big campaign to encourage young German students to become self-employed, because they know much better than everybody else what is important and what is good for our country. And then, market economy needs stable framework conditions. Stable framework condition, because when somebody is ready to invest in a country, he needs a guarantee that this investment will pay back, that it can pay back. And this is not possible when the state is interfering all the time. This is not possible when protectionist measures will interfere and will diminish the success of private investment. And therefore, we need a stable economic world order. We need stable framework conditions. Over the last 40 years, we managed to remove barriers, to remove tariffs, to remove non-tarific obstacles worldwide. We have concluded free trade agreements. We have opened up markets. And this has inspired millions of people around the globe. And now, over the recent months and years, we see protectionist tendencies. We see populist voices. We see people arguing by British, by American, by Indonesian, by Chinese, by Japanese. This will diminish the welfare of the people. This will diminish your standard of living, because it's much easier to organize growth and welfare when it is done on a global scale. When you have a competition, a free competition on a worldwide scale, when people can export their goods and their services worldwide. And therefore, we need an international order that relies on the principle of multilateralism, that relies on the principles of WTO, and that will give access to all the people from all the countries to this free and open international markets. And then, when I mention market economy, I mention social market economy as well. Because we have realized that compared to previous models of market economy, a social market economy is much more successful. Because social market economy means that not only the self-employed person, not only the business person who owns the business, but also the employees will benefit from the success of the business and from the economic growth that is achieved. They will benefit by higher salaries. They will benefit by social protection. They will benefit by a better system of education, better health care, better old age insurance and pension schemes, better environment protection. That is what people need, and therefore we are working in order to increase social market economy on a worldwide scale. We believe all these young people like you deserve that protection. And when they know they are protected in a certain, at least minimum way, then will be ready to increase their efforts. They will be more happier to work, and you will have better results and a more sustainable environment. And therefore, social market economy is not just an ideological principle. It is something that respects the dignity of the human being. And the fact that we are not only an international community of economic success, but that this success should be based on values, as it is the case, Mr. Director, in this university, where values are so important. And all these values are centered around the principle of the dignity of the human being. And it follows from that everybody should be entitled to education, to social protection, and to participation and inclusiveness in the economic process. And this, ladies and gentlemen, brings me to the third and to the fourth and not least important point, and that is the political environment that you need to be economically successful in the long term. I'm wholeheartedly convinced that only a democratic society, where everybody has equal participation rights, where everybody can become elected member of parliament or minister, will fully develop its potential and its capacities. Sometimes it's that look at this or that country and see it is an authoritarian regime. People don't mind. They are pleased with it. And then I say, well, these are either small countries or countries still seen as emerging countries. But when you have a highly developed country with a standard of living, like in Europe, like in Germany, then you need this democratic state, framework, and it will be a competitive advantage, not a disadvantage. And ladies and gentlemen, I mentioned the issue of sustainability, and this has become the next element of this social market economy. It is not in contradiction with market economy, but it has to complement social market economy, and this is why we have organized in Germany this energy transition. You see the solar panels. Germany is an industrialized country. We have an enormous demand for electricity and energy, but we have managed over 20 years only to increase our electricity from renewable sources from 0 to 36%. And we will continue to increase it to 80%, to 90% until the year 2050. And therefore we have to start a debate about it in all our societies. And ladies and gentlemen, when you look at all the principles, I have explained it in my written speech. I have not read out because I wanted to have an open discussion with you. But I will send it to the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, and they will send it to the university, and if you would like it, you can have it by email. But all these principles are important. Business people normally see the business case, and this is important for the success of market economy. But we as politicians, we have to concentrate on the principles, and we have to think about the necessary framework conditions. And let me conclude by saying how much I'm impressed by what I have seen in Indonesia over the last 4 days. I'm so much impressed by the younger generation of people I have met in factories, in production sites, in our conference, business people, people leading startups, and many, many more. It's the young society, it's a sparkling society. All these people are learning from the internet, from social media. They see how much developed standard of living is in countries like Europe and the US. But they are not full of hate and jealousy and envy. They are full of commitment to work very hard to earn their own living for themselves and for their families. And this is something that is extremely promising. I believe that an enhanced, an enforced cooperation, a stronger cooperation between Europe, between Germany, And all the young nations in this region can benefit everybody. It can benefit the economic growth of Indonesia. It can benefit the global exchange of goods and services. It can benefit our countries in Europe as well, because we are in need for more labor force, for more immigration. We are facing demographic challenges. And I wonder whether this stupid debate has been possible for so many years, a stupid debate where one people were in favor and other people were against the idea of immigration. But it is not black and or white. It is a very differentiated picture. For example, in Germany, we have managed to increase the number of jobs in our country by 7 million over the last decade. That's for a highly developed, industrialized country, an awful lot. And we are now facing a demographic challenge. All the people of the generations with enormous birth rates will retire over the next couple of years. And we had a decline in birth rate that was enormous in the 70s and in the 80s. And therefore we have a demand, an increasing demand for labor force. And we will table a law that will make it easier for skilled labor force to get a job in Germany. And many of you will be invited to spend a few years, or perhaps even longer, in my country. And we are trying to organize it by organizing vocational training in Indonesia, in the countries of that region, in a decent way that will benefit your interest and the interest of all of us. And I'm now reminded by this nice master of the ceremony that I should come to an end. Because you are entitled to ask your questions, to share with me your interest and your opinions. I believe that there is a lot we can do and we have to do, but there is more hope than pessimism, and there is a potential for a better world, and I would like you to contribute to this, and therefore thank you so much for your attention.
Herzlichen Dank, Herr Minister Atma Jaya, für die sehr aufschlussreiche Rede. And now it's time for the discussions. We have 15 minutes until 11:25 strictly. So I will open the discussion for 2 questions. Please keep them short and mention your name and affiliation. Please, one from here, 2, okay, second from that part.
Yeah, sehr geehrter Herr Minister. My name is Untoro from National Energy Council. I have only short question. What is the scenario behind your name, Economic Affairs and Energy? That is also important for us also in Indonesia, because you are very successfully the convert from nuclear era to renewable energy era. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Second question, please. From this.
Thank you for the chance for the question. I'm Eva Wulandari. I'm coming from Energy Community Gathering. Currently, we're developing a rural electrification utilizing solar photovoltaic, including LED lightings. So we would like to also electrify rural electrification in Indonesia and also in ASEAN. So the question is, what is the role of German government to involve also in this program? Thank you.
Yes, I can answer very briefly. First of all, in Germany we had from the beginning a Ministry of Economic Affairs. When I travel the world and I meet with my colleagues and my counterparts, I will meet with 4 of them normally: Minister for Digitization, Minister for Trade, Minister for Industry, and Minister for the Economy. And we have made a good experience by concentrating the number of ministerial posts to 16, including the Chancellor, and to concentrate all the relevant economic issues in one ministry. In the beginning, when this energy transition was implemented, we had a split competence for energy. The classical energy production was governed by the Ministry of the Economy. and the renewable energies were within the responsibility of the Ministry of the Environment. And then we could see a lot of tensions between the two of them, and this has slammed down the pace of innovation and the pace of implementation of renewable energies. And then we realized, when I served as a Minister of the Environment, we realized that renewable energies will be a success only and exclusively when they become a business model, when you can produce them at competitive prices. And therefore, we have merged the competence for all sources of energy in the competence of the Ministry of the Economy. As a matter of fact, we have abolished fixed renewable energy fees for a windmill or for a solar panel by an auction system where the capacities for renewable energies are auctioned, and this has had as a consequence that the prices went down by more than half within just 3 years. And this is an enormous success. And this relates to the second question. Thank you so much for your initiative. All these renewable energies will be implemented mainly in rural areas, because in the big cities like Jakarta, like Munich, like Hamburg, like Frankfurt, there is simply not enough place, not enough space for having all these windmills and solar panels. And therefore, we managed to implement them in the rural areas, and that means for the first time since the era of industrial production has started 200 years ago, we are reversing the value chain, because we are bringing back value production to the rural areas. And it means not everybody is in the need of moving to the cities and to the densely populated areas, but quality of life is increasing in the rural areas as well. Of course, it requires lots of transformation work. For example, you need electricity wires transporting the electricity from the rural areas to the big cities. In your case, you will start with modest solar panels in order to organize energy supply in the rural villages and cities. But when it becomes successful, and you can produce renewable electricity today at competitive prices in many of the Asian and African countries, when it becomes a business model, then you will produce in the rural areas the electricity that is needed to supply Jakarta and other big cities in Indonesia. And this is an enormous challenge, and it has to be managed and organized in a business-friendly way.
Thank you. So,
We can take
yeah,
we can take
okay,
3 more.
great. Okay,
Certainly.
3 more questions. 1, 2, 1 more, 3. Okay, please, one microphone for the gentleman here. Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Denny. I'm from Administration Business Magister Program in Atma Jaya. My question is so simple. We all know that the use of energy for especially for economic activity are so close with social responsibility issues. Is that right?
Can you repeat and speak a little bit louder? I'm a little bit deaf.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you. The energy in use of economic activity are so close with social responsibility issues, in my opinion. And the question is, what's really the association between the social responsibility issues with the succession of...
You are slowing down the loudness of your speech, please. Again.
I will repeat.
Your question is...
My question is, what is the association between the social responsibility issues with the succession of market-based economy? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Second, the gentleman here, and afterwards the lady in the middle. Yeah, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Atma Jaya. My name is Widodo Basuki from Department of Engineering. My question is, it's like that I read here that you said that in 2050 that 80% renewable energy will be used for supporting the economy of Germany. Is right?
Yeah.
So
80 to 90%.
80 to 90%. But we know that the renewable energy resource in Germany is not so much. For example, the solar energy and the geothermal energy is not so much in Germany. My question is, what kind of energy resource will be used with the time? Because we know that with the time, Germany need a lot of energy to develop their economy situation. Is it included the fusion energy you mean, or? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, third question, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Judith. I'm a journalist from the Kompas Daily newspaper. So you have said that our young people, Indonesian young people, is impressive. So how can young people here be emphasized to develop our economy? And the second question is, can you describe the business model that implement social market economy principle and sustainability, because maybe it can be implemented to some corporations in Indonesia. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me start with the second question. How can you produce so much energy in Germany given the fact that there is not so much sunshine available as, for example, in African countries or in some Asian countries? Yes, indeed, it is difficult, but we have a lot of wind energy. And for example, we have made a very big learning curve with regard to offshore wind energy. These are windmills constructed in the deep sea, and they are producing much more energies than windmills onshore. And it was in the beginning, when I was a Minister of the Environment, extremely expensive to build all these wind engines in the deep sea, to maintain them, to produce the electricity. We had to pay 18 cents per kilowatt hour electricity. This was enormous compared to 2% that you had to pay for electricity made of brown coal or soft coal. And then, of course, ladies and gentlemen, when this was done progressively, we realized that it was important to learn from the experience that was made. And today, in this auction system that we have introduced, we have auctioned offshore windmill in parks at 0 cent subsidies. It means they will earn the money on the electricity market exclusively, and they are profitable. That means you can make a business case out of it. The second point is that not just the production side has to be considered, but also the energy efficient aspect has to be taken into consideration. For example, I know a number of countries where the economic growth, let's say of 5 or 6% a year, is related one-to-one to an increase of energy consumption. That means 1% more growth means 1% more energy consumption. In Germany, we have been able already years ago to disconnect the energy consumption by applying measures of energy efficiency from the economic growth. So today, when our economy is growing by 1%, our energy demand is growing just by 0.6%. And this was 0.9 when I was a student. It was 0.7 when I was a Minister of the Environment. It's now 0.6. And this tendency is continuing. And it means that you can produce more and one day even reduce your energy consumption. And then there is another idea, not only to be more efficient, but to better link the demand side management and supply side management. Then you will not waste the energy, but you will use it in a different environment. So this is something that is really worth studying and learning, and therefore we are spending money to organize vocational training on energy transition. And Germany has made a learning curve on behalf of almost the entire world, because what we have experienced in Germany, what we have developed in Germany is now implemented in so many other different countries. And this is what an industrialized country can contribute to this unique and indispensable transformation. The second question was asked that was the first question as a matter of fact, what is the link between the social responsibility and the market-based economy? Well, that's quite simple. Market economy is never social as such. It is generating the economic growth, but the question who will benefit from that is unresolved. And you have many countries based on market economy where you have relatively few enormously rich people and many poor people at a time. And this will provoke social unrest. It will provoke instability. And therefore, we have developed this model, what we call the European model, as a matter of fact. And it all started 130 years ago. Not just over the last 60 years after the war. No, it started 130 years ago, when there was a German chancellor as big as me, and even taller than me, Otto von Bismarck. And he said, well, we have to protect the vital security rights of the people. And then he introduced, in 1877 already, as the first country worldwide, a sickness insurance for workers, a pension insurance for workers, an accident at work insurance for workers. And this was the beginning of what we call the social model of Europe. It took 100 years to develop the system. And when I was a young MP, we were discussing in a very controversial way whether we needed a care allowance scheme in addition to this health insurance scheme that was already there. And care allowance was needed because of the demographic change in our society. We have much more elderly people, and the children of them are professionally active as employed or self-employed people. They cannot care, as it was the case for hundreds of years of their parents and grandparents. And that means we had to introduce new social security schemes, but we had to stay competitive at the same time. And this is the challenge. When you have an ideology where exclusively the social aspect, the social responsibility is stressed, then you will have a very big social commitment, but perhaps a lousy, badly performing economy. You need market economy. You need market mechanisms with clear rules and competition and framework conditions. And then you can decide on the use of a certain proportion for social protection and social justice. This is how the system works, and it is overwhelmingly accepted by our citizens. And this refers then at the same time to the question asked by Judith, how can this business model be implemented? Yes, it can be implemented by state framework conditions. Because when you have an unorganized market economy, then it will immediately lead to chaos and to distortion. But when you have a clear, what we call economic constitution, it's part of our constitution as such, and it enshrines the principle of social market economy, and this is reflected by our legislation in many fields on competition, on state subsidies, etc. And then all people can rely, the workers as well as the employers, on these conditions, and then they have a framework for their activities, and this has proved to be the most successful model worldwide.
We have 2 minutes. Time is up.
Three more questions.
I have to ask the organizer. Yeah? Okay. Great. Thank you so much. 3 questions. I think 1, 2, or somebody from this part? No? No? Okay. 3. Okay. First, second, the gentleman in the back, and third, yeah, the lady, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Satria Susanto from undergraduate mechanical engineering program at Atma Jaya. I want to ask that one of the most energy demand around the world is from transportation.
No, you have to speak slowly and loudly. Once again, it's not your problem, it's my problem. I know, but otherwise I can't understand.
Okay. One of the most energy demand from the world is from transportation. An electric vehicle is the most probable solution today. And Germany, we know that is the most renowned engine technology in the world. And I want to ask that, what is your strategy and target to implement electric vehicle in the Germany? Thank you.
Thank you.
Second question, please, on the back. The gentleman in the back.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Iren. I'm from the Economic Development Program. So I'm so interested with the picture on your maybe one day our governments can build the same thing like in your country too. That is just a hope. So move to the question. If you look for the Indonesian nowadays, what do you think? Is Indonesia can follow the Germany path to develop the renewable energy?
Sorry, what do I think that?
What do you think? Is Indonesia can follow the Germany path to develop the renewable energy? The renewable energy, and because I ever made a paper with the same topic, renewable energy. So the result is the paper we can get the benefit of the renewable energy on the long term. So other renewable energy can improve our economic scale. And the last is can I get the copy of your speech? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Third question, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Uti from Faculty of Economic and Business at Atma Jaya. My question is related to the waste. As we know that waste becoming our major problem in the world. And my question is, are there any innovation being implemented or promoted in Germany that uses waste as the source of energy? And then the second one, maybe you meant to share how German government boost the involvement of young generation to become more aware and also to involve them more in the innovation of sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. I start with the last question. Yes, we are investing more in education. We are investing more in research and development. Our investment rate in research and development today is 3% of the GDP. That's quite a lot compared to other countries, but it's not position number one. Position number one is held by Korea, by South Korea, and so we have decided in our coalition agreement to increase it to 3.5% by the year 2025. It means everything we are investing in the minds of our young people, in universities, in schools, in continued professional training, this is also very important, is to the benefit of our economy. And this sustainability part of education is deeply enshrined in our educational system, and it has already changed the landscape. When I'm talking today to younger people, to journalists, to managers, to others, they all have a clear vision that they want to protect environment and climate. They want to be successful as well. They want to make money, of course, but they want to do it in a sustainable way. And therefore, I can only encourage you. In Germany, for example, we have realized that most of the younger people who will graduate from universities over the next couple of years will have to adapt 2 or 3 times in their life to new challenges and will have to choose a new profession. For example, to start with a lower skilled profession, it's the driver of cars. The logistics are very fast growing branches of industry, because in a world based on the internet, where the global trade is growing, where everything is transported so easily within hours and days across Germany and Europe, you need more drivers in the delivery cars. But within a couple of years, all these cars will drive autonomously by artificial intelligence and digital platforms. And that means you will have tens of thousands of people where the job that they have had before will become superfluous because of the progress of productivity. And then the question is, what will these people do? We have realized that after every wave of innovation, at the end of the day, there have been more jobs in Germany than before. So we are basically optimistic, but we have to train the people, to educate the people, to have a continued vocational, professional training for all these people, and this is becoming a big business. We have to think about elderly people. We have a pension age in Germany that has been increased from 65 to 67. And I believe this is a limit, because many people when they are 67 years old are perhaps no longer in the best shape and would like to retire. But there are many people still running marathon or half marathon at that age. They are fit, they want to integrate. So we should think about education schemes and continued education possibilities for people 60 years old, 65 years old, because they want to stay economically active in different professions. The second question was, of the last question, what are we doing with our waste? Yes, there was an old-fashioned way of handling waste for so many years, and then in the 70s and 80s we realized you can burn your waste, and then you can produce energy from it. This is a more advanced way of dealing with it. But the best way of dealing with it would be recycling most of the waste, because then you have a better use of it. Then it is more environmentally friendly. And when you look at the recycling quota that we have, or percentage that we have achieved so far in Germany, it is very impressive. Today, about 70% of the steel, 80% of the aluminum is being recycled, 80% of the paper is being recycled, and many, many other products can be recycled, and this will save costs, and it will save the planet and its natural resources. The next question was can a country like Indonesia benefit from the German experience of renewable energy? Yes, of course it can. It is not yet developed, because you have so much coal, as we have in Germany as well, by the way. We have soft coal for centuries still underneath, but we cannot burn it without destroying our climate and our environment. And therefore, it is important to organize such a transition. And when I had a meeting with the president, I was very much impressed by the charisma of the president, by his devotion to serve the country, and his interest in the future of his younger people. I also mentioned this idea of energy transition, and it is no longer a German model. It is something that is implemented across the world. We are organizing every year the so-called German Energy Transition Day in Berlin. And then the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Minister of Economic Affairs jointly invite people from across the world. And this year we had more than 40 ministers of energy, economy, industry present in this meeting. We have enormous amounts of renewable energies in the United States, in Asian countries, in African countries, all growing, all spreading, and this is something that has to be discussed. And when you ask me what we can contribute, yes, we have developed tools for sharing our experience with other countries. There is a lot of offer to benefit from our experience. That means you start with much more productivity, with a much better business result from the beginning, and you avoid all the mistakes that have been made in Germany before. But this is something that will not be done in cooperation exclusively between ministers and states and governments. It is something that has to come from the bottom of a society. Indonesia is a democratic country. Indonesia is an open society. And this is what we admire. And this is what I experienced, the interest of the younger people. And if you can organize debates about it, if you can imagine good model as a lady who is building these solar plants in rural areas, then it can be the starting point of an energetic transformation of Indonesia as well. Today, it's perhaps possible to have electricity produced from coal for almost the entire country, or palm oil and other sources. But on the long run, when you continue to have a 5% GDP growth per year, when you will extend standard of living and welfare to 250 million people across the country, then you will need, in addition to the traditional sources, new sources of energy production. In my eyes, these will be renewable energy sources. And the last question that was was asked by the lady about e-mobility, e-cars, and cars with combusting engines. When I had a breakfast meeting with business people from Asian and Pacific countries this morning, I said, well, look at mobility and look at all the developments. It's like a Cambric explosion, where we have so many alternative models of mobility, and they all have to be developed. And for example, the combusting engines, as long as it works with fossil fuels, it is not sustainable in a long-term future. And therefore we are thinking about producing renewable fuels for combusting engines. And that would mean that for long distances, you can still use combusting engines even a couple of decades later than today. But at the same time, we are thinking about the promotion of e-mobility and e-cars in the big cities, in the densely populated areas, because it's a matter of protection of the environment, protection of clean air, and this is something where we are competing with e-cars produced by Elon Musk, with e-cars produced now in other countries. They are encouraging developments in Vietnam. I had a meeting this morning with a company in Vietnam producing e-cars, and they have combined design from Italy with technique from Germany. I said that it's much better than the other way around. If you would have chosen technique from Italy and design from Germany. We are better when it comes to technological skills. So this is a very fascinating moment where all of you can contribute to that process. I've seen in Jakarta you have much more motorcycles than we have in Germany. But one day we will have all these motorcycles as motorcycles, as it is under development in Germany today, and this will improve the quality of the air in the cities. So it is not the one or the other, but what we have to do is to think, how can we make it more sustainable? How can we make it environment friendly without losing this possibility to individual mobility? I'm convinced, wholeheartedly convinced, of the individual freedom of everybody in this room. And the younger people in Germany, they are free to choose public transportation in the bigger cities, tubes, trains, etc. But they are also free to choose individual mobility. And therefore, if individual mobility that makes you independent shall survive, it has to become sustainable and environmental friendly. And that's perhaps the most important message I can give to you. This world is full of innovation, not just with regard to digitization. It is full of innovation with regard to the environment, with regard to energy, with regard to transportation, with regard to logistics. And this is an enormous chance for all of you to be part of this innovation. And I do not know whether I will ever be in a situation for bringing a next visit to Indonesia in the course of my ministerial career, because the lifetime of ministers is very small in most of the cases. We always think we are appointed for a decade, but then suddenly we are replaced by somebody else. But I wish all of you a good final exams and a great success in your professional life. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the very insightful and fascinating debate, discussions. So we shall return the stage to the Master of Ceremony. Thank you.
To Dr. Agustinus Prasdantoko, please come forward to the stage to give a token of appreciation from Atma Jaya Catholic University of Indonesia to German Ministry, represented by Mr. Peter Altman.
Has made a gift to me, and it was a batik shirt. It was the biggest size available in Indonesia. And finally, thank you for this presence. I will get a place of honor as a ministry. This is a small gift from Berlin. It's a Berlin bunny bear. It's a symbol of Berlin. Berlin is a city that had a difficult destiny for more than a century. It was part of Nazi dictatorship. It was destroyed in the Second World War. It was suffering from communism for 40 years. And now it has grown to a symbol of freedom and a symbol of joy for younger people across the world. And I would like to invite all of you spending a holiday or spending some months of your studies in Berlin. And this is the symbol for it.
Before we end this lecture, we would like to inform you we have a traveling exhibition of energy transition in Germany that is open for public until the 10th of November 2018. The exhibition is open every day from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. at the main entrance. We also have a gamelan performance by Karapitan Jawi, one of the student clubs at Atma Jaya Catholic University of Indonesia at the same venue.
We have come to the end of the lecture, but before we end the lecture itself, I have some announcements. First, to Mr. Altmaier, these people love you so much, they like you so much, so would you have a group picture with all, but just stay on your chair, and the photographer will come to the front and take a picture you with the background of this crowd. It's okay for you?
Yes, okay.
Okay, thank you. For the photographer,
View-nya kayak selfie. Jadi fotonya dari depan, lihat ke belakang, selfie modelnya. Biasanya foto depan background belakang, ini dibalik.
second announcement for ministry delegates and also other Germany delegates. We have a coffee break snack on the left side of the auditorium. And also last announcement for all who do not register yet, please register to get your certificate. And also, we would like to thank Mr. Peter Altmaier and Mrs. Juliana for your time and this valuable knowledge. Thank you to all audience for coming today. Lastly, we would like to apologize if there were any inconvenience during this event. Good afternoon and thank you.
Nein, Hallo. 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 Ja. Ja klar. Wenn wir jetzt hier rauskommen und ein bisschen Platz ist, machen wir das. Ja. Und wie lange bleiben Sie hier?